the hotel valet ticket with my name and his handwriting. The valet ticket was the cheap kind that still thinks carbon paper is a miracle. It lay on our kitchen counter like a challenge dressed as litter, thin stock red serial number, the hotel's crest pretending to remember manners. Across the blank line where a last name should live, someone had written mine, River. Under it, squeezed in the margin in a confident black hand I recognized from notes stuck to museum crates, Garage Level C, 10:55 p.m. A. I tune pianos. My days smell like lemon oil and practice I didn't earn. My nights are small repairs in clubs that insist ballads shouldn't be this much work. Eli, my partner, writes, installs, and negotiates exhibitions at a museum that likes to be photogenic on Wednesdays. We have been together 5 years. The good bowls live on the middle shelf. We keep 2 glasses near the sink because we built a rule out of water, pour before the sentence that changes a day. He had come home smelling like cedar and a lobby that sells permission. He kissed my jaw with the precision of someone who knows where hearts usually live, and then turned the shower on like water could rinse a paragraph. Late tasting, he said. Private donors. The menu needs evidence. He looked handsome. He looked tired. He looked like a man trying to slip past his own ethics without being late to the elevator. Now the ticket lay as if it had paid the tip. I knew an A who could leave a note on a crate that made a registrar decide he'd done them a favor. Adam, the hotel's event director, taller than necessary, a mouth that made donors sign up for the truth in installments. He smelled like cedar because this city has one cologne for ambition. I walked to the Albion because cabs add strangers to confessions, and the night didn't need witnesses. The garage breathed concrete and old air. I pushed through a metal door with a sign that was easier to ignore than admire, and listened to the steady thump of compressors. On level C, a valet leaned against a painted pillar, inventing patience on his phone. He nodded at me, because men at work recognize the quality in each other even when they'd rather not. Adam stood by the far wall near a small office with a glass window and a desk that believed in paper. He had rolled his sleeves with the intention of pretending he had nothing to hide. He didn't smile. He lifted a hand like a man negotiating wind. "You came," he said. "You borrowed my name like it meant something to you," I said, and it wasn't the bravest line I've ever had, but it did the job. 2 paper cups sat on a dented file cabinet like theater kids trying to be minimalists. He slid one toward me. Condensation rehearsed decency. His fingers didn't touch mine. He stepped closer and stopped with an inch between us. The heat in that inch wrote petitions with expensive grammar. He didn't close it. The restraint was indecent in the way I have learned to understand. "He thinks he's meeting me upstairs to end it politely after the tasting," Adam said. "He promised not to ruin the floral budget with honesty. I wanted you to have the room first." "How long?" I asked, because someone had to measure. 8 months, he said. He didn't decorate the number. Started with rain and an elevator that pretended not to know us. A lobby that sells permission with carpet and friendliness. I ended it twice. He sent me a photo of your breakfast and a complaint about the lighting in a donor portrait. I respected his paragraphs and hated the arithmetic. Overhead, a car chirped itself into believing it had an owner. Farther down, a door sighed. The garage gathered its small truths and tried not to echo them. I watched Adam watch my mouth in a way that felt less like inventory and more like curiosity. He raised his hand toward my wrist, stopped at the inch that cares, and lowered it without touching me. Mercy, correctly applied, is erotic. The metal door behind us opened with the careful click of a hinge that doesn't want to be mentioned. Eli stepped in with his docent face, a tone that makes donors think honesty has a pension plan. He saw me. He saw Adam. He saw the cups and the inch. He closed the door gently because he remembers that objects have opinions. "Okay," he said, and for once the word didn't feel lazy. "You could have kept the ticket out of our kitchen," I said. "You chose not to." "I chose incompetence," he said, and I loved him for picking the right noun. Then cowardice. I cheated. I told myself it was weather and that home is a noun that survives rain. I told myself your patience could be expensed. I called spark structure. I don't want to hear me again. Adam turned toward the small office window as if oxygen preferred fluorescent. He lifted his hand for a third time and let it pause in that inch near my neck we had all now learned how to respect. He lowered it. Heat remained and remembered its lines. "What do you want me to do?" Eli asked. He didn't reach. He has learned that reaching is a contract wrists signed before brains read it. "You'll end it," I said. "You'll sleep on the couch we refuse to call a guest anything. Next week you'll tell me what this was twice. Once in your museum voice that spackles narrative, once with small words. I'll decide what my hands can hold without lying to my wrists." "I'll do that," he said. Adam exhaled and walked into the inch he had declined to steal, close enough for breath to map my jaw without signing anything. "Thank you for not making me a lesson," he said low. "We both would have believed you." He left through the stairwell door with a pace that refused to be punctuation. I looked at the file cabinet as if it could tell me how paperwork forgives itself. The valet asked us if we needed anything. We said no, which was almost true. We walked up the ramp like men choosing alleys on purpose. When we reached the corridor that can't decide whether it's private, we stood under a flickering exit sign until the light made a decision, and then we did, too. "I'm not leaving tonight," I said. "We'll walk home without touching. We'll wait at crosswalks because other people's knees and our better natures both deserve seconds. You'll sleep on the couch. Tomorrow you'll end it without complimenting him. Next week you'll bring me small words." He nodded. He didn't cry. I still love him for that. In the lobby, a couple argued tenderly about whether dessert counts as apology. The doorman waved as if gravity were a favor he could extend when he wanted. At home, the kettle auditioned and lost. He arranged blankets on the couch with the care of someone who would like to be asked to carry what he has dropped. I slept like a device I wasn't ready to test. In the morning, he came back from the lobby that sells permission smelling like nothing, the cologne of adulthood done correctly. He told me he had ended it. He told me twice. In museum voice, platforms, donors, the archive of poor verbs. In small words, he liked being two men because one wasn't tired. He'd mistaken adrenaline for architecture. He could be one person if I let him do the work. I let him. That isn't nobility. It's arithmetic with patience. He slept on the couch for 6 nights and relearned the distance between our door and our bed like a route he hoped would become muscle memory. On the 7th, he came to me without ceremony and remembered my mouth with the lazy precision we taught each other before we decided spark was a blueprint. There is an erotics of restraint that doesn't need a ticket. There is a thrill in choosing not to ruin morning. 2 days later, Adam texted a line that didn't embarrass itself. "Thank you for telling the truth in a room where engines think their hearts." I wrote back, "Try it where nothing echoes." He didn't reply, which was the second best thing he did. Work stayed exact. A baby grand sulked in its middle octave until I taught the block to admit its obligations. A blues bar tipped me in cash and advice, and I took the cash. A young singer asked what to do when the first note doesn't arrive. I told him to wait for breath to remember its job. He looked at me like permission was heavier than he'd guessed. A week later, I saw Adam outside the hotel watching a florist argue politely with a van. He looked smaller. Maybe my anger had stopped needing him to be tall. He said hello without trying to own my afternoon. He did not smell like cedar. The space between us behaved itself. He left without auditioning for a moral. Here is the part that doesn't get clapped for. I wanted him, not the story, him. I wanted the inch, the heat, the disciplined mercy of a hand that knows where not to land. I wanted to make a mistake elegant enough to narrate and survive. I did not. Wanting is a sentence, not a command. Bodies vote. Ethics count. Boredom is mercy if it helps you like yourself at noon. Eli and I adjusted the frame. 2 glasses before 3 sentences. Less reach, better touch. We stopped letting the kettle set tone. At openings, we stand near exits not because we plan to leave, but because rooms breathe better when doors aren't theirs. He keeps his phone face down like a man who has learned to curate attention rather than alibis. I put the valet ticket in a drawer with a watch I haven't gotten around to repairing. Not because I need to remember. Because sometimes objects behave better when they know they're being watched. If another ticket lands on our counter with my name where math should go, I will bring water. I will sit where the exit is obvious and refuse to call that cowardice. If a hand rises toward my throat, I will let the inch exist and answer with a decision I can carry past breakfast. I will keep choosing verbs that keep us possible. End, stay, tell, work, touch, wait. And when I strike middle C and hear both strings agree like a room remembering its manners, I will think about concrete and engines and the night we declined a finale in favor of repair. And I will call that deliberate air the most difficult thing I know how to make, and the only thing that still holds when daylight forgets its lines.